Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler, dealer makeup Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And today we'll be telling you about Cascadia.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it.
This is everything you need to know about Cascadia, the board game. The expansion, the standalone games, the Cascadia line.
Exactly. Which ones you should get, which ones are our favorite. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
For what?
To learn about all of this.
Oh, that makes sense.
Obviously.
Okay. Well, what a better place to start than the beginning.
The very beginning. With Cascadia. This is a 1 to 4 player game designed by Randy Flynn. The art is by Beth Sobel and it's published by Flatout Games.
Now, let's give you an overview of how Cascadia plays. In Cascadia, your goal is to create the most harmonious ecosystem, and in doing so, score the most points. On your turn, you'll draft a habitat tile and its matched token to place in your ecosystem. When playing the habitat tile, the habitat does not need to match to previously placed tiles, but the wildlife tokens must be placed on the tile with a corresponding wildlife symbol printed on it. Now you'll keep playing and aim to connect matching habitats, as your largest habitat corridor of each type will score you points at the end of the game. You'll also need to place your wildlife strategically, as each scores in their own unique way. For example, in this game, bears want to be in pairs and not touch any other bears. The more pairs of bears you have, the more points you'll score. You'll play until the tiles run out, a total of 20 turns, at which point you'll score for your nature tokens, wildlife, and largest habitat corridors, scoring bonus points if your habitat corridor is the largest of all players. What's great in this game is there's a variety of scoring cards for each wildlife, so each game can look different based on the set of cards you've chosen to play with. And of course, there's a solo mode, a family mode, and scenarios or achievements you can aim for as well.
And that's Cascadia base game.
Now, why is this game so popular? Why is this game so big?
Well, I mean, if you've played it, you should already know this already. But it's a quite fantastic puzzle tile placement game, and it's won the Spiel des Jahres, along with a number of countless awards.
It's won a lot of awards.
It really has.
Game of the Year, really, this one just swept. And I think it is because there's that simplicity in gameplay. You're collecting two sets of things, placing them. There's that puzzle aspect that players really enjoy of trying to get the most points by placing tiles in various ways. Scoring wildlife, but also habitats, making sure you're building that large group, because that can get you some extra points.
Exactly. There's a lot of simplicity with getting this game to the table, but there's a lot of strategy when it comes to actually playing the game. And even though it plays fairly quick, you still do get that brain-burny feeling that a lot of people enjoy in a board game.
And then throw modularity in there with the different scoring cards, finding different ways to position all your tiles. This game has endless replayability.
Don't sleep on the habitats.
Don't sleep on the habitats. The other element I think that brings a lot of people to this game is the relatable theme.
100%.
Everybody loves nature. If you don't, you're a fibber.
You're a liar, you little fibber.
But who doesn't want to build a little nature habitat on their tabletop and then invite a little animal, a little elk to come take a look, or a little grizzly bear?
Or my personal favorite, the fox to come in. All the foxes you can have.
Scoring the foxes is so tricky though.
It is, but it's also a challenge that I like.
Yep. And of course, with all the achievements in the game, with all the scenarios you can play, there's just so much in this box.
There really is, yeah.
And that's just all in this box. The game then expanded with a new expansion called Cascadia Landmarks. Now this one's also designed by Randy, it's illustrated by Beth, and published by Flatout Games, as you will suspect to see all of these games are. But with that said, let's give you an overview of this one. Well, first of all, Cascadia Landmarks adds new habitat tiles. There are 45 habitat tiles and 5 starter habitat tiles you can add to your game of Cascadia. There are new keystone tiles that still feature a single wildlife type, but now have multiple different habitat tiles. All of these tiles can be mixed with the original tiles from Cascadia to provide a greater variety of tiles each time you play. If you continue to play either with or without the expansion, there's no need to separate the tiles once they've been mixed in.
With the addition of all these new tiles, you can actually play up to 6 players, and it introduces a new mode called Faster Play. Let's talk about that one right now.
To set up, you'll first remove a number of each of the 5 wildlife token types equal to the number of players from the cloth bag. From the habitat tiles you're playing based on your player count, you'll deal 5 random habitat tiles to each player. These will be placed face up to the side of each player's ecosystem. Now, in order, you'll place one of each of the 5 wildlife token types besides each of your habitat tiles, creating 5 pairs. This forms a personal supply of habitat and wildlife pairs for each player. Now, when playing, in between turns, you'll now have the option to take an additional action by choosing one of the pairs from your personal supply. You may use a nature token to swap any 2 wildlife tokens in your personal supply. However, these tokens may not be swapped with the tokens in the bag. Now, in these games, you'll take a maximum of 5 additional turns. This way, you'll only take a total of 15 main turns rather than 20. All in all, by the end of the game, you will have placed 20 habitat tiles and 20 wildlife tokens to your ecosystem.
Now, on top of that, there are also new scoring cards. And with the original scoring cards, you can mix and match, and there's even more possibilities.
More variability.
Exactly. Let's give you a look at some of the new scoring cards.
Bears. The E card. Here you'll score 3 points for each bear with no other bears next to it, and 1 or more unoccupied adjacent spaces to it, meaning a space with no habitat tiles. F. You'll score 12 points for each bear group. Each group may be 3 or more in size, and they must touch each of the other 4 wildlife types. G. Here you'll score points for pairs of bears with no other bears next to the pair, but at least one of the bears in each pair needs to be on a forest habitat tile. Elk. E. This one scores for elk in the exact semicircular formation. Now the shape may be rotated, and each elk may only be used once for a single group. F. Here you'll score 13 points for each elk in this exact shape. The shape may be rotated, and for any wildlife touching this group, you'll subtract a point. G. Here you'll score points per group of elk in the exact shape, where at least one elk is on a prairie habitat tile. Salmon. For all these salmon wildlife scoring cards, the runs may not be adjacent to other runs. E. This one scores for each run per salmon in a zigzag shape. F. This one scores for each run per salmon, and you'll score additional points for each bear adjacent to the run. G. Here you'll score for each run per salmon plus 1 point per salmon on a river habitat tile. Hawk. E. This one scores for each pair of non-adjacent hawks with a direct line of sight to only one another. If there's a line of sight to an additional hawk, they do not score. F. This one scores for each hawk that has a direct line of sight to a non-adjacent fox. G. This one scores for each pair of hawks with at least 3 unique habitat types between them. Each hawk may only be counted once in this instance. The fox cards. E. This one scores for each fox that's surrounded by animals of any type. Partially surrounded will still score you points here. F. This one scores for each fox adjacent to exactly 2 different wildlife types. This includes foxes. If the condition is not met, they will not score any points. G. Lastly, this one scores for each fox surrounded by unique habitat types. You'll ignore the tile the fox is on, and habitat types and adjacent habitat tiles that are not touching the edges of the fox's tile do not count. And that's the new wildlife scoring cards.
Last but not least, you're probably wondering why this game is called Landmarks, and of course, we're introducing landmarks in this game. Let's talk about them.
You'll follow the typical setup with a few exceptions. After distributing the starter habitat tiles, you provide each player with 1 extra keystone tile to add to their environment before the game starts. You'll find the number of keystone tiles from the subset of tiles you're playing with equal to your player count. Starting with the last player in turn order and going counterclockwise, each player will select 1 of the extra keystone tiles and add them to their ecosystem. You'll then shuffle each of the 5 landmark scoring card decks and flip over a number of cards equal to the number of players. For solo games, you'll flip 2. These cards will create a tableau in the center of the play area, along with the landmark tokens of each type. When playing Cascadia, if you add a tile that would make the size of your habitat corridor 5 or greater, you may choose to place a landmark token of the habitat type on the tile you just placed. Now again, the landmark token must be placed in the habitat tile you just placed, and will take up the wildlife space on that tile. You may only have 1 of each landmark tokens, even if you've completed additional corridors of that type, meaning the most landmark tokens you'll have in a game is 5. After placing the landmark token, you'll also select 1 of the landmark scoring cards and place it next to your ecosystem. Let's go over a few of these cards. Some will score per wildlife type on the corresponding habitat, others increase your corridor size, score the amount of corridors you have on a specific type, or just grant you points for the end of the game. This, of course, also means that there's new score pads.
Now, of course, there's also scenarios and achievements which a lot of Flatout games have, which we love. But that, in essence, is the expansion to Cascadia, Cascadia Landmarks. And it is, in fact, the only expansion to the base game of Cascadia.
Exactly. I mean, it adds quite a bit, so it is quite a, I want to say, vital addition to the Cascadia base game.
Now, you saw Alpine Lakes earlier, and you were wondering, is that not an expansion? No, it's standalone.
It is. Cascadia Alpine Lakes is the newest addition to the Cascadia line. It's done by the exact same team, and you can sort of expect the same feel as you would get from the Cascadia base game, except in my opinion, the strategy is just a tier above.
I agree. Now let's give you a look at how Cascadia Alpine Lakes plays. As always, you'll begin by setting up. You'll first place all the wildlife tokens into the cloth bag and shuffle them thoroughly. Then, based on your player count, you'll randomly collect a set amount of habitat tiles to use for the game. Shuffle the chosen tiles and stack them within reach of all players. Then, reveal 4 habitat tiles along with 4 wildlife tokens from the cloth bag. You'll now have 4 combinations consisting of a habitat tile and a wildlife token within reach of all players. Next, you'll randomly select 1 habitat scoring card for each of the 3 habitats. You'll place the 3 chosen cards in the center of your play area so that all players can see them. For your first game, we recommend using the habitat scoring card A for each habitat. You'll then place the nature tokens in reach of all players. Each player will now receive a random starter habitat tile. The player who most recently saw one of the wildlife in the game, or an Alpine lake, will be the first player. You're now ready to play. In Cascadia Alpine Lakes, you'll draft habitat tiles and wildlife tokens to build your own environment. You'll stack tiles to add elevation, surround lakes to boost their scoring value, and place wildlife strategically based on the habitat scoring cards, and also height and elevation to score more points. After each player has taken 20 turns, the most harmonious and high-scoring Alpine ecosystem will win. Now, this game is played in turns, and each of your turns has 2 phases: selecting a habitat tile and wildlife token, and placing your tile and token into your environment. Let's go through each of these in detail. Number 1, select a habitat tile and wildlife token. At the start of your turn, there'll be 4 habitat tiles and 4 wildlife tokens in the center of the play area. 4 combinations you're able to choose from. Before you make your selection though, you'll check for overpopulation. If all 4 of the available wildlife tokens are the same, they're automatically removed and replaced with 4 new wildlife tokens from the bag. If by chance you draw 4 identical tokens, you'll repeat this step. Now, if 3 wildlife tokens are the same, you may choose to remove these tokens and replace them with new wildlife tokens from the bag. You may only do this once per turn, even if 3 tokens are the same after the refresh. Now, the tokens removed will go back into the bag after you resolve this step. Now, you'll select a habitat tile and wildlife token. Typically, you'll choose one of the preset combinations. However, you can use a nature token to help mix things up. We'll talk about how you obtain these in a moment, but you can use a nature token from your supply to do one of the following. You can take any of the 4 habitat tiles and any one of the 4 wildlife tokens, or you can wipe any amount of wildlife tokens and replace them with new ones from the bag. Again, the tokens you wipe will be returned to the bag after you draw new ones for the play area. Now, there's no limit to the nature tokens you can spend. You can spend as many nature tokens as you have. However, keep in mind that any nature tokens you have at the end of the game are worth 1 point each. Okay, so now that you've selected a habitat tile and wildlife token, it's time to place them. You can choose to place these in any order. Let's first talk about the habitat tile. When placing your habitat tile, you can freely rotate it, and you must place it in your environment following one of these 2 placement rules. Number 1, you can place the tile adjacent to any habitat tiles already in your environment. At least one side of your tile must touch a previously placed tile or your starter habitat tile. Or, number 2, you can place your tile on top of one or more already placed tiles on your board. However, you do have to follow a few additional rules when doing so. The tile you place must be on the exact same elevation. You can place on 2 different tiles or completely cover a previously placed tile. If either of the hexagons you're placing on have wildlife tokens on them, the new tile's hexagons that will cover it must also allow for that type of wildlife to be placed on it. Finally, when placing the tile must be placed such that its elevation is no more than one elevation higher than at least one space adjacent to it. Think of it as stair steps. You always have to be able to step up to a higher elevation, but you can only step up one elevation at a time. Now, when placed on wildlife tokens, they'll now ascend to a new elevation, meaning the habitat type may change for wildlife tokens throughout the game, giving you flexibility for the future in how you plan for the habitat scoring objectives. And if the token ends up on a keystone hexagon on the new tile, you'll also earn a nature token. So essentially, these wildlife tokens act in the same way as if you've just placed them. That's the tiles. Now let's talk about the wildlife tokens. You may place your wildlife token into your environment following these two placement rules. Number 1, the hexagon you place on must not already have a wildlife token on it. What this means is that each hexagon can at most only have one wildlife token present. Number 2, the hexagon must show the matching wildlife icon. You'll notice some hexagons have multiple icons present, giving you flexibility in which wildlife token you'll place. If you place a hexagon with only one wildlife icon, a keystone hexagon, you'll receive a nature token from the supply. Additionally, you'll never place wildlife tokens on hexagons with lakes, as they do not have wildlife iconography present. Now, if you cannot legally place a token, or if you do not want to, you'll return the wildlife token to the bag. This is the only time you could remove a wildlife token. Once it's placed in your environment, you cannot move it or discard it. You can elevate it though, as we discussed earlier. After placement of both the wildlife token and the habitat tile, you'll replace each in the play area. The habitat tile randomly from the top of any of the stacks, and the wildlife token randomly from the bag. Your turn is now complete. Play now passes clockwise to the next player. Now you'll keep playing, building up your environment until every player has taken 20 turns. You'll know this has happened when there's no more tiles to replace the one taken in the play area. At this point, the game ends immediately, and you'll now proceed to scoring. You'll first score the habitat scoring cards. In the forest, you'll score each forest corridor for the number of unique wildlife types present. For the meadows, you'll score a number of animals in each contiguous group of the same wildlife type within the meadow. And finally, for the glaciers, you'll count up how many glacier corridors you have that have a pair of the same wildlife type in them. Now, each habitat type will score similarly. You can see the descriptions on the cards, but if you want additional clarity, feel free to reference the relevant section in the rulebook. Now, let's score lakes. For each lake visible in your environment, you'll score 1 point per level of its elevation. Additionally, this number is doubled if the lake is surrounded by other tiles on all sides, regardless of the elevation of the other tiles. Now it's time to score the wildlife elevation. For each type of wildlife in your environment, you'll first earn 2 points for every token placed at elevation 3 or higher. After that, bonus points are awarded based on who has the highest wildlife of each type. Now, if 2 or more players have a token at the same height, you'll break the tie by comparing how many tokens they have at that height. If they're still tied, you'll look at the next highest level down and keep comparing until the tie is broken. If players are tied all the way down, then they stay tied and the points are awarded as normal for a tie at that player count. The exact bonus will depend on your player count. Once you finish scoring each of the highest wildlife types, you'll proceed to score your nature tokens. You'll receive 1 point for each nature token you have remaining in your supply. At this point, you'll compare your scores and the player with the most points wins. Now once you've played a few games, feel free to check out the advanced variant. At the start of the game, you'll choose if you want to play with 1, 2, or 3 environment scoring cards. There are 3 different types you can choose from. When choosing, make sure to select no more than 1 card from each of the 3 environment scoring card types. You can choose the specific cards you want to play with, or you can choose randomly. You'll place these cards above the habitat scoring cards at the start of the game. Now at the end of the game, you'll score for each of them. These all vary in how they're scored, and if you want to learn more about how each of them is scored, feel free to check out the relevant section in the rulebook. Cascadia Alpine Lakes also offers a family and intermediate variant, which simplifies the habitat scoring. And there is a solo mode. It'll essentially be the same, but when choosing the tiles, you'll also remove the rightmost tiles from the game. So each turn, you'll be replacing 2 tiles and 2 tokens. After you've scored the game, you'll compare your score to the chart provided in the rulebook. Additionally, whether you're playing the solo mode or a multiplayer game, you can try out scenarios or aim for achievements, which are all provided in the rulebook.
And that's Cascadia Alpine Lakes.
Now, this one tickles my brain quite a lot.
It does.
It adds elevation to the mix, and at first you think, that can't be that hard. But all of a sudden, as you build up, there's, less spots to put your wildlife.
Yes.
You have to account for your wildlife going up between the tiles. You have to account for how each of the wildlife, or each of the habitats now scores instead of the wildlife.
Yeah.
And elevations plays a pivotal role, especially in that competition element, because you're competing for the highest tokens in so many different ways. That's tricky, I would say.
Yeah, and although the vibe and the art and the iconography are very similar to what you'll experience in the base game, this does, like Ilya is implying, have a lot of different scoring that is happening that is very different from Cascadia and makes it a great standalone game that you can have both these games on your shelf.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely not one or the other. They enter different parts of your brains, and if you enjoyed the puzzle of Cascadia, the original, then you probably would enjoy Alpine Lakes as well. Now, I did fib. There is one expansion. There's more expansion to Cascadia that's offered in this box. Now, the wildlife, which is all different in this game, can be used in the Cascadia original as a mini expansion. It can score you some additional points. Fun.
So moving on to the next standalone title, we have Cascadia Junior.
Now, this is done by the same team with an addition of Fertessa Allyse, who's also a co-designer with Randy Flynn. And this is the lightest of all the Cascadia games. It's meant to be the family game, bring more people into Cascadia and introduce them to that world with the new delightful artwork also done by Beth Sobel.
Yeah, this is quite the spin, and of course it's called Junior, so what gave it away in the sense that it was the lighter version?
What gave it away? Well, let's give you a breakdown of Cascadia Junior. As always, you'll begin by setting up. Each player will receive a panorama board. You can use either side, but one will remind you how scoring works. You'll then shuffle the habitat tiles face down in the center of the table, gather a number of face down tiles based on your player count, and return the remainder to the box. You'll flip 2 tiles face up next to the stacks to create the market. Next to the market, you'll arrange the 5 wildlife cards in a row with a side A face up. You'll place the wildlife markers next to their matching cards. Then you'll shuffle the wildlife sighting tokens and place them next to the cards face down in stacks, making sure not to peek at the other side. You'll do the same for the habitat sighting tokens, which you'll place nearby as well. Each player will draw a landscape tile to start off their environment. You'll choose a first player and you're now ready to play. Cascadia Junior is played in turns where you'll try to score the most points. On your turn, you'll take 4 steps. The first is choosing one of the 2 lands from the market. Once chosen, you'll move to step 2, add your land. You'll add the selected tile to your environment. At least one of the sides needs to touch. There's no restriction for placement when it comes to the habitat or wildlife on the tiles. Just at the edge of the tile touches another edge of an already placed tile. Next, you'll check for wildlife. If you've created 3 matching wildlife markers in any shape or direction, you'll take 3 matching wildlife tokens and cover the icons on each. After doing this, you'll take a random wildlife sighting token for that animal and place it on your panorama board. You can't look at the back of the token until the end of the game, but you can decide how it's placed in your panorama. We also encourage you to move the tokens around as you acquire them to simulate the Cascadia landscape. The last step of your turn is to refill the market. You'll draw a face down tile and flip it face up in the market. The next player now also has 2 tiles to choose from. Now you'll keep playing until everyone has taken 10 turns and placed 10 habitat tiles into their environment. You'll know this occurs when there's only 1 habitat tile left in the center after the last player has chosen their tile. Before scoring, you'll check for habitats. For each of the 5 habitat types, if you have 3 to 5 of the same habitat hexagons next to each other in a connected group, you'll take 1 habitat sighting token of the matching type and place it in your panorama. If your group is 6 or more, you'll take 2 habitat sighting tokens instead of 1. You're now ready to score.
You'll flip up all of your sighting tokens on your player board, count the conifer cones, and the player with the most wins. Want to try the advanced mode? Use side B of the wildlife cards. In order to obtain a wildlife sighting token, you'll now need to make sure your wildlife matches the shape on the card. If it does, you'll do as you've done before, cover the tiles and take a matching sighting token.
And that's Cascadia Junior.
I'm a sucker for points being variable. Like, not knowing how much you're going to score.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that mechanic so much because anyone can win, and it's all, you can build the beautiful landscape, you can have the best time, and then you flip everything, and maybe I had the most nature tokens and I won.
That is true, yeah. I will say that Cascadia Junior does a very good job of bridging that gap between like a mass market feel type game and a hobby game, because Cascadia and the rest of the games that exist in this line are a bit more strategic and do tend to fall in that hobby space more, whereas Cascadia Junior does a good job.
And although the artwork is new and different than the other games, I feel like it still has this familiar feel.
It works.
It works really, really
Yes.
well. And that's Cascadia Junior. Now, last but certainly not least, we have the Cascadia Rolling line. Now, these are roll and write games.
They are.
You're going to roll your beautiful dice. There's going to be dice in the middle, and then you're going to write down and create your best habitats in a variety of mini games. There are indeed 4 games in each of these boxes, and they vary slightly, and sometimes a lot, depending on the type of game it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But with all that said, let's give you a look at how these work. As always, you'll begin by setting up. Each player will receive 2 personal dice. The dice are slightly different, so make sure you have one with a bear and one with a split salmon hawk as one of its faces. Each player will then receive a tally sheet, a player aid card, and a writing utensil. You'll now decide which environment you want to play. Each plays differently with a varying complexity which can be found listed on the top right of your sheet. We'll use environment sheet B to teach the game, but stay tuned for the end of the video for explanations of the other environment sheets. Now that each player is set up, let's look at the central area. You'll place 4 central dice within reach of all players. You'll then prepare the habitat cards by separating the decks into Tier 1 and Tier 2 piles. You'll place all the cards face down and remove one of each of the 5 habitats from each deck. This will leave you with 10 Tier 1 and 10 Tier 2 cards. You'll shuffle the decks and place Tier 1 on top of Tier 2. This is your habitat deck for the game. You'll flip 1 card to start. This will form the first 4 card spaces that the habitat cards will occupy as the game progresses. Finally, you'll shuffle and reveal 4 completion cards. You'll place the cards left to right in the order you revealed them, either below or above the 4 card spaces. Discount completion cards, cards with a blue background, will go on top, while bonus completion cards, brown background, will go on the bottom. If it's your first time playing, we recommend that you use the cards numbered 1 to 4 as denoted in the bottom right. You're now ready to play. Cascadia Rolling Rivers or Hills is played over exactly 20 rounds. Each round, dice will be rolled, wildlife collected, and habitats completed, filling your environment sheet. At the end of the game, the player with the most points wins. Now before we start, we'll note that there's 5 different habitat types and wildlife types. As you've noted from setup, you'll see the same amount of habitats. However, there's a hierarchy of rarity and value for the wildlife, with bears being the most valuable and rare, while salmon being the least valuable and most common. Now let's give you an overview of a round. Each round has 3 steps, which all players will take simultaneously. Let's start with roll dice. Each round, one player will roll the 4 central dice, and all players will roll their 2 personal dice in their own play area. That's the first step. The second step is collect wildlife. Based on what was rolled in the center and your own playing area, you'll collect wildlife. Now you'll primarily collect 1 wildlife type, but the central special die and dice actions provide you opportunities to take more animals or multiple animal types in a single round. The first step here is to reference the central special die. It has 6 unique faces. Let's quickly go through them. 2 are just wildlife, a choice of a bear or 2 salmon, or a hawk or an elk. 1 is a wild animal, which represents 1 animal of a wildlife type of your choice. This one lets you use your 1 personal die twice. So when choosing a wildlife type, if taking one of your personal die, you'll be able to take it twice. This one is called +1 other. After selecting which wildlife type you'll collect, you'll select one other die that was not part of that collection and take the wildlife on it. Last but not least, this die will reduce dice actions by 1 nature token. This does mean that the down convert, which usually costs 1, can be taken for free. The Rolling Hill special die will have an additional 2 faces. One that lets you take any 3 dice, and one that lets you reroll your personal dice up to 2 times. These are all the die faces and a great segue into the next part of the step. Take dice action. Now this step is optional, but it may help you out in your wildlife collection. There are 3 dice actions you can take, but you may only choose to take 1 action per round. These utilize the nature tokens you have to help maximize the value of your wildlife collection. Down convert. You can pay 1 nature token to convert all faces of 1 wildlife type to the wildlife below it. Up convert. You can pay 2 nature tokens to convert all faces of 1 wildlife type to the wild type above it. 2 types. You can pay 3 nature tokens to take 2 wildlife types rather than taking a single one. An important note here, these dice actions can only be taken for the wildlife you take from the dice. You cannot convert your existing wildlife on your tally sheet. Lastly, you'll record the collected animals on your tally sheet. Let's go through an example. The special die here allows me to take one of my personal dice twice. I'll choose to take foxes, and I'll use a nature token to down convert the elk into foxes, meaning I'm taking 5 foxes this turn. And that's step 2. Finally, the third step, which is optional, complete a habitat card. If you have enough wildlife, you may complete one of the habitat cards in the middle. In the first round, only 1 habitat card will be available for completion. However, as the game continues, you usually have an option of 4. Let's fast forward a few rounds to give you a better idea of this phase. To complete a habitat card, you'll go through these 5 steps. Number 1, apply discounts. If the habitat you're completing has a discount completion card above, you may choose to apply the discount on this card. For example, you can pay a nature token to reduce the cost of the habitat by any 1 wildlife. Number 2, pay costs. You'll cross off the required animals for the habitat type off your tally sheet. Number 3, take the habitat and completion card bonuses. You'll check if the habitat grants you any nature tokens or if there's a completion card bonus below. You may take these bonuses in any order. Number 4, mark environment sheet. Here's where the game differs depending on the environment sheet you're playing. You completed a forest habitat here. On your sheet, you will outline the hexagon starting left to right equal to the value of the habitat, which is 3. You'll then proceed to the final step. Number 5, taking environment sheet bonuses. We surrounded an elk, which we will add to the tally sheet, 2 victory points, which we'll circle to remember, and finally a rain icon. Since we've obtained a rain icon, we'll proceed to the matching icon below and choose a bonus that has not yet been taken from that section. Bonuses here can be wildlife, nature tokens, victory points, or even a free habitat space crossed off anywhere on your map. Now if you ever end up filling one row completely, any additional habitats of that type or any type you've completed will go into the overflow section, which will score your additional points and grant you bonuses. Generally, the more habitats you fill in, the more points you'll obtain. And of course, you'll want to strategize on which to fill out, as bonuses you obtain can help you further progress your game, earning you the most victory points. Now you may choose not to complete a habitat card, as this is an optional action, and save your wildlife for a future round. Once all players have completed the 3 steps, the round will end. At this point, you'll slide all the habitat cards to the right, and flip over a new habitat card from the draw pile. If there are more than 4 cards face up, you'll take one on the furthest right and discard it. The game ends when there's no more habitat cards in your draw pile at round end. This means that once the last card is flipped, this round will be the last one played. After finishing the last round, you'll proceed to final scoring. You'll first tally the farthest value of each habitat you've reached. You'll then proceed to tally any bonus points on your sheet. These are the bonus points between your habitats and sun and rain bonuses. Finally, you'll receive a point for every 5 leftover combination of wildlife or nature tokens. You'll compare your scores, and the player with the most wins. Now, let's give you a quick rundown of all the other player sheets. Environment Sheet A. Here, you'll write down the number of the corresponding habitat you've completed from top to bottom. Each time you reach a bonus by filling out either a row or every 2 of each habitat type, you'll circle the victory points and select a sun bonus below. Your final score will be the tally of the values in each row along with any bonus victory points. This sheet in Rolling Hills and Rivers is essentially the same, with the exception of the thematic text describing the Columbia River in Rolling Rivers and the Zumwalt Prairie in Rolling Hills. The theme differentiation will be present in each of the sheets. Environment Sheet B you've seen here. It works slightly differently in Rolling Hills, as instead of the sun and rain bonuses, you'll collect landmarks, which can score you additional points for each row or column you complete, along with wildlife types and additional habitat bonuses. You'll always cross these off in order, following the arrows. Environment Sheet C. Here you'll outline the hexagons equal to the number and type from the habitat card you've completed. You'll start adjacent to a hexagon already outlined on your sheet, which in the beginning is the star spaces. Outlined hexagons will score you points at the end of the game and grant you bonuses which you can use immediately. You'll collect sun and rain bonuses as before, crossing off your choice of the bonus in each column, making sure to follow the arrows when crossing off each icon. You'll also obtain landmarks and gather bonuses for those as well. Each habitat type you completely fill out will earn you an additional 4 points, and if you complete additional habitat spaces of that type, you'll fill in the overflow section. The difference between hills and rivers here is the layout of the map and some of the bonuses. Finally, Environment Sheet D. We'll speak about these two separately. In Rolling Rivers, the sheet is played the most similarly to Cascadia the board game. When filling out the habitat, you'll not only fill in the number for the type, but you'll use the wildlife spent here within these hexagons. You can only use the quantity of animals on the habitat sheet, but in any combination of your choice. For example, in this mountain habitat, I can write in 2 hexagons. I can use the wildlife spent, meaning I can take 2 hawks, 1 hawk and an elk, 1 salmon and an elk, etc. I'll choose to take 2 elk. Now each animal scores differently, and this will be the primary way of scoring in this environment sheet. For example, you'll score 3 points per pair of adjacent bears. You'll gain bonuses for filling in adjacent hexagons or surrounding an area with 3. Additionally, each habitat you'll complete will grant you 3 bonus points. And if in the habitat all 5 wildlife types are present, you'll earn an additional 3 points as a wildlife diversity bonus. And there's also an overflow area here, granting you additional points and habitats for you to fill in. Now for Rolling Hills, you'll fill in the habitat spaces as you did in Rolling Rivers, marking each space with a wildlife type from the habitat card. But here you'll work to complete as many of the 15 regions as you can. Each region you complete will grant you points and a bonus. If all the animals are identical in the region, you'll also gain the same wildlife bonus. You'll score points for wildlife diversity in each habitat types and landmarks as before. And that's the environment sheets. Now there's also solo mode and scenarios and achievements as seen in other Flatout games. Many different ways to play and goals to achieve. Finally, the last thing we'll mention is mixing versions. There's a significant amount of variation here. For instance, you can use either of the central dice sets when playing. You can also combine and mix all the habitat cards from both versions in Tier 1 and Tier 2 decks. When setting up, you'll simply shuffle and choose 2 from each habitat type for each deck to make your deck of 20. You can also mix up the completion cards for even more variety, combine them and shuffle and deal 4 for each game. And last but not least, you now have 8 sets of personal dice, which means you can play with up to 8 players using both copies, and technically even more with even more copies.
And that's Cascadia Rolling.
There are so much game.
There is. I think the one thing we do have to mention is that these are separate games. You can kind of have them exist together, but you don't need one to play the other. They are standalone, and they are fantastic. As lovers of roll and writes, I love how much is in a box, a single box.
I just love that genre of games too, because you're able, it's a small box, but it carries so much of that familiar feel of Cascadia, but also stretches what Cascadia can look like.
It really does.
There's introductory games which are pretty straightforward and quite simple and easy to introduce to others. And then when you go to all the way to the end, those are tricky. Your brain starts to melt. You see the comparisons. And it's just fun. It introduces that core mechanic, the way the cards to flow out, the way that you have your own dice. It's just so good.
Yes. These 2 games do a very good job at 2 things in particular, and that is introducing rolling rights to as a mechanic, and introducing you to the world of Cascadia and bridging that like game mechanic that you are maybe very familiar with in the other games into a different style of gaming.
Exactly. Well, let's give you an overview and bring all the games back so we can talk about them. They're back.
They are.
Now, for our first question, what does your Cascadia journey look like? Where should you start?
Where should you start? Geez. I mean, I'm going to say the obvious answer, and I think you should start with the base game Cascadia. You don't need the expansion right away. Just start with the base.
That's a good answer. My answer is there's no right answer. You can start wherever you want to start, with the exception of maybe just the expansion, because you wouldn't be able to play the game without the base game.
Yeah.
But if you're newer to board games, if you want to experience what tile placement can look like, Cascadia Junior is a great introductory to the genre as a whole, where then absolutely Cascadia, and then Alpine Lakes to kind of break your brain in the expansion.
Yes.
I do think the rolling games should probably come after, because you appreciate the games much more having the familiarity with Cascadia. But you can also start with rolling to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what Cascadia can look like as well, because there is similarity in the mechanics over there too.
I mean, of course, it really just does depend on what kind of gamer you are and what kind of vibe you're going for when looking for a game.
Exactly. Now, second question is, what is your favorite Cascadia game?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
And there is the right answer to this question.
I actually don't know an answer to this question, but right away, I'm just going to say what comes to my head is actually Cascadia base game.
Oh.
I think that one it just hits like a special spot for me, maybe for when...
With the expansion or without?
Either. I'll say I like being able to play it at a higher player count, so the expansion does offer that. I think with the base game, I just like the vibe. It's not too complicated, but it is also got a lot of strategy into it. I find that the people that we show it to tend to often really enjoy it. That being said, Alpine Lakes is the newest, and it hasn't really hit the market yet. So I think that this is a contender for my favorite as well.
My favorite of the bunch is Alpine Lakes. I think I've played it so much in the last couple of months, and I think the elevation, although initially I was reluctant to elevate. I did not want to elevate. I wanted to stay flat.
There's so much going on with that sentence.
But I think the more that I played it, the more I've really enjoyed it and saw the potential for the strategies. And I feel like if I had to pick out of the two which two I wanted to play right now, I would pick Cascadia Alpine Lakes.
Right.
Is it because of recency bias? Maybe. Comment down below. Ask us in a year if it still is my favorite. I will let you know.
Now, the third question we want to ask is, are all of these games worthy of a spot on our shelf?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if I was to choose one...
To get rid of? Or to keep?
Okay.
No, I think to get rid of, because we've already talked about favorites.
If I was to choose one that I don't think I need, it would be the expansion.
Right.
Because I don't love the landmarks. I think the landmarks add a little bit too much. But I do really like the tile diversity and having the different scoring cards. Like that's the part of the expansion I really like. But I don't think I need the landmarks. So if this was to go away, I don't think I would miss it. Because I also don't often play Cascadia 5 to 6 players.
That's fair. Mine, I will say, is I think that there's a spot for all of these games on our shelf for sure. Keeping in mind that we are quite the collectors of board games, and we do have quite a bit. But if I had to get rid of one, I think it would be a toss-up between one of the Rollings, one of them, so I'd keep the other,
Fair.
and Cascadia Junior. I think because Cascadia
It's
Junior
not really catered towards you, is it?
Yeah, it's got a little bit too much randomness for me.
Love it.
But I understand the appeal. I 100% understand the appeal. It's just
Tyler,
it's not there
build the
for
panorama with me.
Yeah, it's not hitting the right spots for me that the other ones do.
How dare you? Now, that has been everything you need to know about Cascadia. Is there elements of this we've missed? Do you have any questions?
Yes.
You can drop them in the comments down below and ask them, and we will gladly answer them.
Exactly. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button if you're new here, because we love talking about board games.
We sure do. And hit that little bell, because then you know when our next videos come out. And then we can all partake in the joy of board gaming together. Now, for our question of the day, what addition would you love to see to the Cascadia universe?
Ooh, is it an expansion? Is it a new standalone? What do those mechanics look like?
I think it needs a stuffy.
Wow.
Like a little plushie.
Yeah, I'm more about the game. I want to see a game.
I like plushies. They're fun.
Yeah, they are. I agree. I think what I would like to see is maybe like a card game. Like strict card game.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be fun.
That's the challenge.
Let us know your answers down in the comments below. But before we leave, we do have a little bit of a giveaway that we want to do.
A giveaway?
We have some extra copies of Cascadia Rolling Hills and the other one.
Rivers.
Blocking my view so I can't make sure I'm getting it right.
Rivers.
There you go. And we want to give them away to a lucky viewer.
Now, how do you enter? All you have to do is leave a comment down below, answering a question of the day, or just chatting with us about Cascadia. You can also gain some additional entries if you join our Discord, which you can click on the links down below. And all the terms and conditions and geographical restrictions will be in the description of this video. So make a read through that, and then enter the beautiful giveaway of Rolling, which we'll be giving away in less than a month.
And to clarify, this is 2 separate giveaways. One for that one and one for this one.
2 winners.
2 winners.
Who will they be? We will find out soon. Well, thank you so much for watching.
And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye!